Hello everyone and welcome back to my Nook. Today's video is basically about me struggling to figure out which book to read next. Today I just finished Love on the Brain by Ellie Hazelwood and I loved this book. I enjoyed it so much. It was also the first book I ever tabbed, which was an experience too, but now I am kind of struggling to figure out which book I want to read next, because lately I've been reading so much romance with the occasional other genre passing through type of thing, but I'm starting to feel a little tired of the romance genre and its typical structure and formats and tropes. It's not that I'm not enjoying the books I'm reading. As I definitely saw with Love on the Brain, I am still greatly enjoying romance books, like if the story is enjoyable for me, but I still kind of feel like I need something else currently. I'm just not sure, meaning that I am going to read the first chapter of certain books that I chose from my physical TBR pile, which is huge by the way. And after that first chapter, I am going to try to decide whether or not that book caught my attention enough to read it next. And I hope this will help my decision, and I'm going to take you along. So without further ado, I'm going to show you which books I've chosen from my TBR pile. I chose 4 books in total from my TBR pile, and given that I feel like I could still be enjoying a good romance if it were the right story, I chose 2 romance books and 2 fantasy books. So the first romance book I chose is Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. This book I have actually pre-ordered months ago, so past me decided to put this book on my TBR list, and I trust past me with that decision, so I don't remember much about the plot of this book, meaning I would be going into it fairly blind, which is not what I usually do, but like past me researched this book and knew it would be right. Present me would be going into it fairly blindly. But as far as I know, this is about 2 people in the audiobook industry. The second romance book is The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This book is by the same author who also wrote The Spanish Love Deception, and it's about the best friend of the main character from The Spanish Love Deception. And the male love interest in this book is the cousin of the female main character from The Spanish Love Deception. Bit complicated to explain, but that's what I know about it. And as far as I know, the best friend is getting kicked out of her apartment or something and needs a place to stay, so she wants to stay at her best friend's apartment. I also pre-ordered this book months ago. Just in case the camera angle or anything changed a little bit, I had to change the battery of my camera. But you're back now, so we can carry on. The next book that is on this pile is Between Ink and Shadows by Melissa Wright. I've also bought this book quite a while ago, so I am trusting past me on the research she did and the decision she made that this book would be right for me. I remember that the female love interest is trying to get out of a contract or something, and there's a man that is the king's seneschal. I don't remember enough to explain anything about the plot of this book, so I'll have to read the first chapter and then see what that is about. Honestly, the first chapter will probably tell me not much about the entire plot of this book. But let's get into the last one, and that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This book I am picking up because of Katie is reading. She has been raving about this book in her recent vlogs, and funny story, I had seen this book, not this edition but another one, in a bookstore years ago, and I had taken a picture of it because I thought it was pretty, and that picture still exists on my phone because I thought maybe I'm going to pick up that book one day. And now I saw her reading that book in one of her vlogs and thought maybe it's time I actually pick up this book. So I found it online, bought it secondhand, and it's here now. This book is about Laszlo Strange, who has been obsessed with this lost city of Byyee. Some kind of opportunity presents itself to him. Maybe he can visit the lost city of Byyee or something. I know that there's also blue people in this book. That's basically as much as it also says on the back, because there's also a lot of questions surrounding Byyee, as I'm gathering from the plot summary. I am actually holding very high hopes for this book, maybe because Katie is reading has been hyping this up so much for me, but it also sounds very interesting, so let's see what the first chapter of this holds. Why don't I just start with thank you for listening. Let's go. So I just read the first chapter of Thank You for Listening. I would love to listen to this on audiobook, by the way. People are saying that Julia Whalen is actually narrating the audiobook herself and that she's an amazing narrator, but the hold on it at my library is about, I don't know, 4 months long or something. So I'm probably not gonna get to that. As I was saying, in this first chapter, Siwani is currently on a flight to LA to an event called BiblioCon. I'm guessing it's something like Comic-Con, but for bookish topics, where there's like panels and stuff. That's not my guess, that's what was actually mentioned. And she is actually an audiobook narrator herself. I believe I said that already. And she would usually not be at that BiblioCon, but her boss and mentor and landlord would have actually done such a panel about a certain topic, but he hurt his foot, so he can't go. Meaning he asked her to go and do this panel for him. And well, now she's on her way to Las Vegas. And so far, I think, well, not much has actually happened plot-wise, but I feel like I could really like the writing of this book. I think just so we change it up a little bit, I'm going to pick up Between Ink and Shadows next. I just finished the first chapter of Between Ink and Shadows, and honestly, past me knew what she was doing. The first chapter was already so intriguing. The female main character, Nimona, is tied to the dark secret society known as the Trust, and they're basically dealing with magic, which is honestly so intriguing. There have been a few mentions of what kind of things they're dealing with, like they're giving people things that they most desire but cannot have. Beauty was mentioned, so that sounded very interesting. And apparently Nimona's father has made some sort of contract on her life or something, so she keeps having to pay these monthly tithes to the Trust. And the next task they sent her out to do is to go after Warwick Spencer. He's mentioned in the little plot summary on the back of the book. And he's King's Seneschal, which means he is second to the king. So it's gonna be very difficult to get to him. But if Nimona doesn't complete this task, she can't pay her debt for that month, and that is going to be trouble as far as I understood from that first chapter. And honestly, I really enjoyed the writing. It was only 8 pages, but I already enjoyed the writing so much, and I already have some sort of feeling for the aesthetic and the vibe of this world. And honestly, I'm very intrigued. And I'm just realizing that I need to find a different word for intrigued. I'm very curious about how the story continues. It's a very short book, but it's part of a trilogy. Yeah, okay, very interested in this. And now let's continue with the American Roommate Experiment. It's getting darker and darker outside, so I had to turn on another light. I'm not sure if it does anything, but I'm trying, okay? I've just finished the first chapter of the American Roommate Experiment, and apparently it will be at least dual POV, because the chapter says chapter 1 Rosie, who's the female main character in this book. So I'm guessing there will also be chapters written from the POV of a different character, possibly the male main character and love interest, maybe? Remember how I said that I think the female main character in this book got kicked out of her apartment or something and now needs a place to stay? Yeah, well, she wasn't kicked out of her apartment. The literal ceiling broke down. So she can't stay in her apartment anymore, and she needed another place to stay, and her best friend is away for a few weeks, I think it said. I'm not sure just for how long, but they mentioned it. So she went into her apartment with the spare key she has, but then someone else is trying to get into the apartment, and she thinks someone is trying to rob her because that person is trying to get into the apartment rather forcefully. and she like accidentally starts making noises in the apartment, and the person on the other side of the door notices her, and they start talking with each other, and she calls the police, or tries to call the police, but ends up hanging up because it dawns on her from the things that this intruder is saying that he's actually her best friend's cousin. As I already knew from the plot summary, he's allowed to be in this apartment because his cousin, her best friend, Catalina, lent the apartment to him for the duration of her vacation. And he actually also has a key, at least he said so, but it wasn't mentioned why he was trying to forcefully get into the apartment and not just using his key. I don't know, maybe he lost his key or something. But yeah, they met now, and it's also been mentioned that Rosie, the female main character, has been having a huge crush on this cousin of her friend for a while. So that's the setup. It's interesting for sure, and I already know from the Spanish Love Deception that I really like Elena Armas' writing in general. I do have to say though, similar to the Spanish Love Deception, this book is also over 400 pages long. I'm not sure if I'm in for that long of a single story when it's about romance, you know, so that might be a thing to consider when choosing between these books. But first now, let's get into the last book that is on my list for today, Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Okay, I know the lighting situation by now is disastrous, but we have to deal with what we've got right now, okay? We will get through this, it's gonna be fine. So I just finished the first chapter of Strange the Dreamer, and so far it has been... I mean, the prologue was, I'm guessing, a different time and a different place. A girl literally fell from the sky. What? And also then the firmament spun on its axis and there was an earthquake? What? No idea what that was about, but I am incredibly intrigued, okay? Okay. And in the first chapter, it started with something really interesting. It started with a word description. Shrestha, noun, when a dream comes true, but not for the dreamer. And then it says, archaic, from Shres, the bastard god of fortune, who was believed to punish supplicants for inadequate offerings by granting their heart's desire to another. Interesting. And then in the first chapter, there wasn't really much actual plot going on in the present, but it was more of backstory as far as I understood. It was basically about where Laszlo came from and how he grew up, and most importantly how he became so obsessed with this lost city of Byyee. And the first chapter already touched a bit on the mysteries that surround this city. All of these things made me so curious, first of all, and second of all, the writing, oh my god, oh my god. Okay, I need to read some passages for you. He'd had another name first, but it had died like a song with no one left to sing it. Yes. There are two mysteries, actually. One old, one new. The old one opened his mind, but it was the new one that climbed inside, turned several circles, and settled in with a grunt, like a satisfied dragon in a cozy new lair. And there it would remain, the mystery in his mind, exhaling enigma for years to come. The cloud of his breath accompanied him like a chummy ghost. This writing style, it already sounds so like magical and whimsical. I'm all here for it. And I feel like you guys are already getting a feeling in which kind of direction this is going. But let me pick up the other 3 books first for a little conclusion. So in this video, I have tried the first chapter of 4 books. All of these books sound really good, at least really good, which I knew because past me researched these books and I knew they could be a great fit for me. But actually reading the first chapters of them really made it more apparent that I would like these books, potentially. I'm thinking that I'm definitely going to read the romance books at a later point because they sounded interesting, but I really do feel like I would probably be enjoying them more at a time when I'm actually up for the romance genre in general again. Them Between Ink and Shadows was so intriguing, but then Strange the Dreamer just sounded so magical and whimsical. I think I'm going to go with this book. I'm just so curious now what the whole matter is with this lost city of Byyee, and I cannot wait to fully meet Laszlo Strange and also find out what on earth was up with that girl that fell from the sky in the prologue. With that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe give it a thumbs up. Perhaps let me know in the comments which book you are currently reading. You can follow me on Instagram, so I will see you guys somewhere else on the internet, and then we might see each other in the next video. Bye!